Welcome to Tuesday Talks. We realize that life is hard. We all have questions that we wouldn't even think about asking out loud. The comforting thing is, you're not alone. We're all asking them. That's what this podcast is for. Each week, we're going to talk about hard questions and painful points in life. We won't shy away from anything. If you've thought it, we're going to talk about it so you feel seen and understood. Join us for our conversation this week on Tuesday Talks.
What is up, everyone? Welcome to another week of Tuesday Talks. This week and next week, we have a really awesome conversation for you guys to hear. We had the wonderful Miss Amy Moore come on and just talk about this topic of partying and what that looks like. So I was really blessed by it. I thought it was an incredible conversation. And so this week will be part one, and then we won't make you wait too long. Next week, we'll have part two. So without further ado, here is part one. What is up, everyone? Thank you for joining us for another week of Tuesday Talks. This week, we have a really fun episode. We got the one, the only Miss Amy Moore to join us, and Grant.
And Grant.
So, Amy, we'll get to you in a second, because if you're watching, you can see that Grant is a lot darker than he was last time he was on. And Grant, have you been to the beach?
I have not been to the beach.
Then why are you so dark?
So I gave our students at Long Hollow the opportunity to choose an incentive because we know we've announced on the podcast a couple of times that we've been in the middle of camp signups, and history has been made. And I told them that if we make history, and by the time that our early bird is done, which it is finished up, then if we had a waiting list of 400 students, which we've never done before, then I would let them choose. And they chose, out of everything, a spray tan. So I went this morning to Suntan City and got double dark on spray tan. And that is why I am looking very different. So if you're watching the podcast versus listening, I am sorry if I am a distraction. And if you're listening, I would highly recommend getting a good laugh for your day and going and watching.
Yes.
Because it is the darkest I've ever been in my life, and it is hilarious. But
Yes. This is available on YouTube. I'm sorry, I'm taking a moment. So anyways, if we're going to talk about camp, just wanted to give the quick plug. If you haven't signed up for camp, you need to do that quickly because we don't have many spots left. And that, once again, that for high school, we are actually almost at a point where, like, girls specifically, like, you will actually have to wait and see if anyone else drops. Guys, like, we have some spots left, but you'll also get put on the wait list because we've got to make sure we can have the proper accommodations. But we are getting close to saying, like, hey, we just don't have any more room, which is wild. It's
crazy.
If you're a middle schooler listening, you also need to sign up because as of this recording, we have either 399 or 400 signed up.
about on wait list.
Which means, like, they're at wait list as well. So don't delay. Sign up for camp, and you won't regret it at all. So anyways, Miss Amy, it is good to have you on. How you feeling?
I'm feeling good. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah,
I love this topic.
Thank you for being here. Amy came in straight from work. And,
I did.
So you are a rock star for showing up after working. So Amy, I forgot to ask you to bring 3 items to describe yourself. So anyways, if you could describe yourself in 3 items, what would you like? What would come to mind? I'm putting you on the spot. I apologize.
Okay, so this is probably pretty easy. Something that's, like, really loud.
Like an air horn or like a
an
megaphone?
air horn. Yeah.
Okay.
You know, I like to call it, like, passionate. You know, I'm a passionate person.
Yeah.
I like to be dramatic sometimes. I'm sure other people can relate.
For sure.
What else? Like a confetti popper, maybe? Like, phew. One of
These
those.
are incredible.
Yeah.
I wish we would have brought these items. These would have been amazing.
And then, like, something that likes to sleep a lot. I love to sleep. Like an animal.
We went from one extreme to the other. So it's like megaphone,
Oh, yeah.
party popper, to like,
Maybe that's why I love to sleep. I never realized this.
you're like,
Because I go 100 and
you're
then
100 and it's crash.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
There you
That's
go.
cool.
That is awesome. So we have to stop. I don't. Grant, I'm not getting any audio from you.
Okay.
I'm very
We're gonna
confused.
stop now.
All right, got it figured out. Sorry about that, everyone. So Amy, your 3 things were megaphone, party popper, and something that sleeps.
Air horn.
Air horn.
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah.
Air horn. I like it.
Yeah, there you go.
So your husband is the one and only Will Moore, and he's been on once. We'll get him on again. But Amy, we brought you on because you are super passionate about this topic, this question, which is partying okay? And so I just don't know how else to segue into it other than Amy, is partying okay? What are your thoughts and just go for it.
Perfect. I love it. Yeah, no, this is a topic that I love to talk about. I think this is kind of what I connect most with, topic wise, with young girls and high school age and that sort of thing, because it's something that I can closely relate with. And I know that it's a struggle as a believer when you have kind of these things that are maybe tempting you or that you're wondering about, that sort of thing. So I love this topic. And I would say the short answer is it depends. What is your definition of partying, right? I love to party,
She's a party popper.
I'm a party popper. But I love to have fun. I like to consider myself a fun person. And so I love to party. But I think there are also, definitions of that word that most people would associate with that aren't good, healthy things you should be doing.
Right.
And so for me, I think it's good to have fun. I like to have fun, just can't be the same kind of fun everyone else is having.
Right.
So it's kind of not a direct answer, but is partying okay? I think yes, depending on what you're doing.
Gotcha. Grant, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think every time we kind of address a topic, we always kind of have to get into the definitions. And
Right.
that's where we always start. And I love that because that's a huge part of understanding further what you mean by what you're asking and what you mean by what you're saying, because there's always assumptions. There's cultural assumptions. There's what my viewpoint is. There's what other people's views kind of are on partying and okay. What is okay? Is that yes? Is that no? Or is it just kind of it's all right? Just those questions. So without nitpicking the question, trying to look at it from the side of, okay, partying in general. For me, I'm a huge advocate for John 10:10 is my life verse, which is Jesus came to want to make sure that we have abundant life, like the thief is in control of kill, steal, and destroying. But Jesus says, I've come so that you may have life and have it to the full. I think that means we get to have fun. And a lot of my upbringing was you cannot have fun and follow Jesus. Those two do not go together.
Right.
You have to set aside having fun to follow Jesus. And I think that's why I love student ministry, is because I'm getting to hopefully advocate that you can have the greatest adventure of your life and also follow Jesus. But that sounds very different than what a lot of people, and just for people that are listening, of going, you maybe have not heard the church say this. And on behalf of the church, I apologize that we haven't done a great job of, we have separated, I think, so far the idea of fun and partying and enjoying and life to the full with this idea of following Jesus, that we haven't placed them together well or modeled it well. It's we're the stick in the mud that always has to care about the rules, always ready to jump on somebody's back. We're known as kind of the judging area and party. That's our party, is the judging party. That's
Right.
kind of what we get named from a cultural look. And so wanting to address this in a way that helps maybe a student walk away and going, oh, I can follow Jesus and have fun. The question I think, Amy, that you're raising is, what is partying and what is your definition of fun and partying? What does that look like? So I think that's where we've got to start, is knowing from a context of what the world is kind of engaging in versus what we define it as.
So let's start with what we would call unhealthy, the probably not the most helpful partying. It's tough because I don't want to list examples, but know that okay, what I'm doing is probably not best. So, for the students that are listening, going well, I go, but I don't touch the alcohol. I don't touch if there are drugs there. I don't touch that. I don't get drunk. I don't get high. I'm there to hang out. So like, why is that a big deal?
Yeah, no, and I think there may be some good intentions there. I think some people, might not have the best intentions with just, hey, I just want to be here. What if I don't drink? And then others may really truly be genuine in that. And, the thing I would say to them is you have to be careful, because the more and more you expose yourself to things that you shouldn't, the more and more you become okay with them. And so maybe 6 months ago, you wouldn't have been okay with this certain behavior or trying this certain thing. And all of a sudden, you've been exposing yourself. And all of a sudden, it doesn't seem that bad. Right. Maybe I could try it. So it's almost like this idea of, you're desensitizing yourself in a way, the more and more you expose yourself. So, for me, it's like, can I go? What if I don't drink? Well, yeah, you could. But the problem is no one wakes up one day and just says, hey, I think I want to destroy my life today. It's a slow progression of poor choices.
Yeah.
And so for me, I just think my best advice is you can't be there, especially if there are things that are happening that aren't right.
Yeah. But like, that just sounds really like cut and dry. That sounds very black and white, and I don't like that. Like, I should be able to go and not touch this stuff. Like, why are you telling me this? Why are you saying that it has to be this way? Because I just don't think it does. Like, it's not going to do me any harm, right?
Right. So I think it's a good question. And, Grant kind of touched on it a little bit where he's talking about living your life and experiencing life to the fullest. And that's kind of what like God intends us to be able to do. And so for me, that's like, how do we increase our joy, and how can we, experience things that increase our joy and not steal our joy? This is one of those things that is not going to increase your joy. It's going to take things from you. And kind of a thought I had when I was just kind of thinking through these things and thinking through what somebody's, mind may be thinking when they're trying to process some of these things, just like you're questioning, that's kind of cut and dry. I don't like that answer. For me, I'm thinking, okay, if, someone is out in the ocean and they're kind of like treading water and everything's cool for a while, but eventually you're going to get tired and you're going to need like a life jacket. You're going to need some help. And so it's kind of the same thing. It might be okay for a while. And that's why you're kind of telling yourself, hey, this is fine. I've done it before. It's okay. But eventually it's not going to be fine. And you're going to end up getting yourself maybe into a bad situation, maybe making a poor choice. And I always tell students, it takes one poor choice to lead you down a path that you didn't see yourself going.
Yeah.
And so you have to kind of create boundaries for yourself. And one of those boundaries might have to be not being there. So
I think that's really good. I'm wondering in my own mind of the person that's listening that is processing it out, remembering how I tried to justify, like remembering like how I really did look at partying as the angle of I could go, I wasn't going to drink. I'm the guy that's called to ministry. I just love people and I just want to show up to the party. That one party would have ruined my entire integrity and reputation and would have cost me my job in a lot of churches to be caught at a party, to have the police show up. And it's like, well, the police don't show up every time. Like, it's not all of those different justifications. And I think we live in a world where I would just ask of what you're saying and what I hear you say are two things of like knowledge is maturity for a lot of people. So exposure to these things is what maturing looks like. It's like, well, this is just real life. Like, this is what my friends do. This is what we talk about. This is what we like, is how we have fun. And my question to that would be, is that actually the best way to gain like wisdom and knowledge, is by just exposure and just intaking and just doing? Because in my mind, I would want more than just the knowledge that ends in exposure and results with me going, I'm left with nothing. Like
Right.
these people that are inviting you over that you're saying, hey, these are my friends. What would happen when push comes to shove? Like, are these people that are just around you because of the like activity you're doing? Or are these people that actually genuinely care about your heart, life, health? Because a lot of the times that I started asking friends and people, they realized when push came to shove, these people didn't really care for me. These were just people that were around me. And it seemed as though they cared for me until things got real.
Right.
And that was when they left. And so trying to help make sure you're not setting your footing in a place and going, this is just where friends are. This is where I'm going to be lonely if I don't party. Like I'm literally going to have to get rid of all of my friends. And then I'm going to be left by myself. It's just, I think, a part of a lie, along with like, this is just what it means to grow up, is that you've got to gain more knowledge and exposure to these things because it's just real life. When I don't think that is actually the truth of what it's supposed to be. It's not supposed to result in you just getting exposure and maturing and getting older and being more exposed to these things. So.
Right. Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. And, I think like you're saying, like the exposure and this idea behind it, like, I think that's not, a bad thing. You should be trying to kind of gain knowledge about certain things, make choices, try to make, well-informed, mature choices, these things. But it's Matt Chandler. He's a pastor in Texas. I love listening to some of his stuff he does. And he's, you'll hear a little bit about my story in a little bit, but brand new believer at 26. And he was one of the first people I came across. And so I would listen to his messages and sermons on YouTube all the time. And so he tells this story about how his 3-year-old daughter loves to climb on the back of the couch. And, he has to tell her, get down every single time. And he's not trying to steal her joy, but he's trying to protect her. And so he, relates that to like the Lord for us. He's not trying to steal our joy. He's trying to protect us. And so it's one of those things where, yeah, you can say, hey, I'm trying to be present. I'm trying to just experience and expose myself. But at the same time, you're not protecting yourself. And so that's why I kind of talk about setting boundaries and those sorts of things for yourself.
That's good.
So, Amy, you kind of alluded to your story, and honestly, like, for the listener that's like disagreeing with you, is going, oh, you're just some like old hag that doesn't know what she's talking about,
Hag.
even though you're not that
Wow.
old. Well, I mean, in
Old
relation to
hag.
students, like they,
That's interesting.
like, I don't know. That's what came to mind, But anyways, like, why, like, what, how is this going to do me any harm? Like, Jesus is there after the party. Jesus is there before the party. The Lord, I care about that. Like, this isn't, all that is good, but like this one party is not going to do me any harm. And we talked about boundaries, we talked about all that, but why should I believe you when you're saying that there will be harm if I go, or even if I'm just there not doing anything?
Yeah. So, I can tell you a little bit about my background and my story. I didn't necessarily grow up in a home that was, we were going to church every Sunday and things like that. I was exposed, here and there to church and godly things, that sort of thing. But for the most part, I got caught up in high school at a really early age in a bad friend group, an unhealthy friend group, and it led into, years and years and years of making bad choices. And so, you talk about partying, drinking, doing all these things that you shouldn't be doing. I mean, if it could be done, I had done it. And that kind of all led up to, being 26 years old and having this kind of moment in my apartment by myself, not a believer, professed atheist for years, and just kind of at this lowest of lows, in my life, and couldn't think of anything else to do but to pray. I had never prayed really in my life. I don't, never opened a Bible, never, necessarily been to church on my own. And it was literally in that moment that the Lord just kind of like radically changed my life and opened my eyes to who he is. And so for me, you know, I've kind of lived that life. I've done all the partying, and I did it for a long time, for years and years and years. And it's one of those things where I can tell you from experience that a lot of times once you kind of get caught up in that lifestyle, and like I said, it takes one poor choice to kind of lead you down a path that you didn't see yourself going.
Yeah.
I've seen it happen a million times, heard about it happening a million times. It happened to me. I mean, everybody can trace things back to like that one thing usually. Like, I shouldn't have gone to that one party. I shouldn't have hung out with that one person. I shouldn't have tried that one thing.
Yeah.
But so for me, it's like I can trace it back to, you know, starting out in high school and some things that I, you know, got into that I shouldn't have. But, you know, you kind of get in this situation where you're so deep into it that you're almost like chasing the next high. And I don't mean high as in, you know, from drugs or alcohol or whatever. I mean like an emotional high or a mental high. And I think a lot of students can kind of relate to that because they almost think of it as like an escape for them. Like, I go to a party or I'm going to do these things and it's like this escape. It makes me like feel good.
Yeah.
And so you're kind of chasing these emotional highs, you're chasing these mental highs. And what ends up happening is you're running a race that has no finish line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're just going to keep going and going and going because this high leads to a low, and then you're chasing, trying to get to the next high, and it leads to another low. And it creates this really vicious and unhealthy cycle.
And that is the end of part 1. I hope you really enjoyed it. I hope that you were able to get something out of it. As always, text Tuesday to 98173 to join the conversation, to send in questions. We want those questions because we want to be able to answer and give you answers that you want. So please, please, please send in your questions. That's Tuesday to 98173. And we will catch you guys next week. See ya.